The carbon tax, the coming tax on everything, brought to you by Never Worked an Honest Day in His Life, Justin Trudeau. What does it mean for you and me? It means, well, what do you think a tax on everything means? It means that everything is going to go up. Prices for everything, for things that, are crucial to our everyday existence, like heating, driving, well, just basic transportation, because I mean the price gets passed on whether it's rapid transit or if you're driving your car. In case the Liberals didn't realize, or woolly-headed Justin Trudeau didn't realize, that buses too run on fossil fuels, and there is a cost involved in that. Whether it's an additional tax to you or it's fare increases, believe me, it gets passed on. I don't think anybody with a couple of brain cells to rub together would deny that. But okay, let's listen to Justin, sock boy idiot, try and tell us how it's not going to cost us an arm and a leg to support his tax on everything.
There is an imperative to put a price on pollution, and if there are costs associated with for average families, we will more than compensate those families for those costs.
You'll more than compensate families for the cost of your tax on everything. So you're going to take the money from hardworking families, from the middle class that you constantly tell us that you support. You're going to take their money for doing everyday activities like heating their home, driving, etc. Plus the cost will be passed on the consumer from all of the food producers that have substantial fossil fuel requirements to ship their foods across the country or import them from internationally. I don't think that's not going to be passed on to the consumer. So you're going to take all the money from hardworking Canadian middle class, you're going to send it to Ottawa, and a bunch of overpaid bureaucrats, thousands of them, because it always takes about 1,000. It takes the average bureaucrat, it takes about 1,000 of them to do the job of one average Canadian. We all know that's how that works. We have plenty of examples, and that's not even an exaggeration. We have plenty of examples of the absolute corrupt, ridiculous overreach of bureaucrats. So we're going to pay thousands of them to take your money and then to issue rebate checks. Instead of, here's a thought, just let Canadians keep their money instead of imposing a tax on everything and shutting down the economy.
So how will this work? Well, to recap, several jurisdictions already have their own plans, or they've opted to go with the Fed. So let's focus instead on those that didn't comply: Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and New Brunswick.
So here's the CBC attempting to spin the carbon tax, of course, in favor of idiot boy Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And they'll sort of start off pretending they're actually doing a news report, and so they can hide their total propaganda as supposed journalism. And they start off talking about, okay, part of the country is in favor, well, not in favor, part of the country government have implemented a carbon tax, like here in BC under the NDP. Well, no, sorry, under the BC Liberals, the supposed blue Liberals. Yeah, that was a little present from outgoing Premier Gordon Campbell. And then, of course, the NDP government in Alberta has instituted a carbon tax. And how's it worked? It's been a spectacular failure. All it does is pass on costs to small businesses. I know landscapers and other small businesses that rely heavily on trucks. They can't go out and buy, even if there was an electric truck that they could buy. So first of all, you have the hurdle that they don't have electric trucks, and secondly, you have the hurdle that if there were, they'd be 10 times more expensive than a typical used diesel truck, which is what they rely on. So those costs get passed on. But yeah, they get a rebate at the end of the year. Doesn't cover the cost of the extra fuel costs put on them by the carbon tax, and they have to wait a year to get this rebate, which already doesn't cover the cost. And what, of course, government never understands, small businesses have month-to-month operating costs that they have to cover. They got to cover payrolls because they're actually creating jobs. They can't just go to the taxpayer and soak the taxpayer and hire 10,000 bureaucrats. They actually have to work in the real world. So no, carbon tax not working in BC or Alberta or anywhere else where it's been implemented. Okay, so let's talk about the provinces that are going to challenge the Prime Minister on at CBC. Let's see what your spin is on that.
Collectively, that's about half the national population. Starting in January, industry and companies will be taxed $20 per ton of carbon emissions, just to begin. which Ottawa admits will almost certainly then be passed on to you, the consumer. That means a jump at the gas pump and your heating bill. Other products will probably go up too. So to help cover those costs, that's where the rebate plan comes in.
Yeah, the rebate plan. Okay, so you notice that they went to, well, at least they admit it was going to jump to $55 a ton in the next few years. And what they leave out is climate Barbie, Catherine McKenna has already come out and said that, yeah, it needs to be $500 a ton. So they're talking about how it's going to quickly rise to $55 a ton. And they really, ideally, they want to go 10 times that amount. And they're just giving you the price increases for the initial $20 a ton. They're leaving out, when they say it's going to go to $55 a ton, then they give you the price increases for heating oil and natural gas and at the fuel pump for $20 a ton, which is only going to be for the first year. It quickly jumps past that. And again, as I say, when you're filling up your car every week, can you wait to the end of the year, for that rebate check, which it may or may not cover your expenditures? No, I don't think so, because most Canadians, see, trust fund baby Trudeau doesn't realize most Canadians, 90% of Canadians, they look at their costs monthly. They've got monthly mortgages or rents to meet. They've got monthly fuel costs. They've got monthly food bills that they have to meet. They don't have a multi-million-dollar trust fund that they can just dig into.
Feds anticipate collecting billions on the carbon tax. They say 90% will go directly back to consumers, 10% to small businesses, schools, and hospitals. So Canadians get their annual rebate at tax time, either added to the refund or deducted from what they owe.
So what's the frickin' point? And that's a question that the CBC will never answer. It's a question that the rest of the corrupt media will never answer. But CBC will still try to spin it in favor of the Prime Minister. I mean, who cares about math, huh? Because we know math class is tough. Just ask Climate Barbie.
Now, those rebates could be crucial because any measure that hits taxpayers in the wallet is going to be a tough sell. It's the Prime Minister's greatest challenge when it comes to carbon pricing.
In other words, to translate the CBC propaganda, how much money do we have to return to Canadians to bribe them with their own money so they'll continue to vote for us? If you've got an ounce of sense, you realize that there should be no amount of money that you can be bribed with out of your own pocket to make you vote for the Liberals. Since if you vote for anyone else, well, if you vote for the PPC, don't trust the Conservatives, vote for PPC, they'll actually allow you just to keep the money that you earn.
And as Catherine Cullen tells us, with an election fast approaching, Trudeau has a lot riding on his sales pitch.
We're going to help Canadians thrive.
What do you call a tax when you don't want to use the word tax?
The price on pollution. It will no longer be free to pollute. If you put a price on something you don't want, pollution, people will pollute less.
Well, that's the very simple answer from idiot boy Justin Trudeau, who doesn't really understand anything about economics. This is the guy who believes that you grow the economy from the heart out, or that budgets balance themselves, or that small business is just the tax shelter for the very wealthy. Yes, those are all direct quotes from Justin Idiot Boy Trudeau. No, Justin, you see, when you have to drive someplace, when you're a small business that has to use transportation, when you're a business that has to import products from outside the country or distribute them around the country, you don't have a choice about using fossil fuels. There isn't some sort of magical pixie dust alternative that we can use. Widespread use of electric cars is, well, far down the road. Even the very overpriced Teslas are extremely unreliable. So no, people are not going to rely on electric cars to go thousands of kilometers when they can barely be relied on to go a couple of hundred kilometers. Again, how are you going to heat your home in the winter? You don't have a choice, idiot boy. You have to heat your home using fossil fuels. There's no magic pixie dust that magically heats your home. You can't do it through solar energy when you're living in a dark Canadian winter and there's no sun for 6 months of the year. And again, even if it was sunny the whole time, you still wouldn't have enough electrical output through solar energy, even if you could afford the tens of thousands of dollars to put solar panels all over your roof, there wouldn't be still wouldn't be enough electrical output to heat your home. So there are no options for Canadians but to use fossil fuels. So it doesn't. If you have to use something, it doesn't matter how much you inflate the price with your tax on everything. They're still going to use it, idiot boy, because they don't have a freaking choice. But of course, your handlers, Gerald Butts and the rest of the crew that are actually running this country, they don't care. They live in a bubble. They're just like, meh, whatever. Who cares? Let the little people figure it out.
You're looking at a key moment in a political wrestling match over the carbon tax. Note the young audience to help build a sense of moral imperative.
The time is now to take real action.
But a growing chorus of conservative opponents say this agenda is anything but worthy.
It's just another Trudeau Liberal tax grab.
The Trudeau tax scheme amounts to a financial shell game.
Canadians won't be tricked by this.
Well, on a side note, the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, of course, is staunchly against the carbon tax and is going to stand up to Justin Trudeau. The Premier of Saskatchewan, whose name escapes me for the moment, is definitely anti-carbon tax, and he will definitely oppose Trudeau on this. Conservative Party leader Andrew Scheer, he says whatever he thinks will get him a vote. He says he's against the carbon tax, yet he's willing to sign on to the Paris climate agreement, which is an onerous agreement on Western industrialized economies, and there's no other way to meet the targets they're imposed. They're BS targets that don't do anything, but want to see Western industrialized countries penalized for to meet some UN agenda. So yeah, for what it's worth, there you have it.
But the specifics of this plan are key to its success or failure. Enter the tax rebates. Officials say about 70% of Canadians in the affected provinces will get more back on their tax returns than they'll pay in carbon taxes.
Our province asks, if this is the case, what's the point?
It's basic economics that if you start putting a price on something you don't want, people will look at ways of not having to pay that price.
Okay, so just to reiterate all the points I just made earlier, Justin, it's not basic economics. You don't have a clue about anything basic, let alone economics. And, I can't say any better than, the Saskatchewan Premier. What's the freaking point?
So the lines have been drawn in the sand, but politics aside, is the carbon pricing model sound in practice? To try to get a sense of that, we reached out to someone who understands the science and the financial aspects. That's Jennifer Winter at the University of Calgary. She studies how government policy affects the environment and natural resources. Jennifer, you're also an economics professor, so you're...
Yeah, okay, so after trying to pretend that they were doing a journalistic story, here we go into full CBC propaganda mode. They bring in the far left academic expert opinion. Now, what do you think? What do you think this far left academic is going to say about Justin Trudeau's proposed tax on everything?
Perfectly suited for this. If the point is to get people to pollute less, is taxing companies then offering households rebates actually going to work?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, no question about it. No further elaboration needed. Doesn't matter that there's no alternative for everything that is going to be taxed. Just don't worry about it. It'll totally work.
So the way the plan has rolled out is that we're pricing the emissions of companies and of households, and that creates the incentive to change behavior, to reduce emissions, both on the company side and the household side. And
once again, so-called professor of economics, Jennifer Winter, what are the alternatives? If you want to give them incentive to change their behavior, how can you get them to change their behavior when there's no alternative but to use fossil fuels?
And we know that people and firms respond to incentives, so this is going to work at reducing emissions.
Yeah, once again, there you go. This will work at reducing emissions. No further elaboration needed. No examples of what alternatives people might turn to, given the onerous price on carbon you're going to give. This will work. Just trust me. I'm a left-wing academic who lives in an ivory tower in a complete bubble, and I receive government subsidies for everything that I do. But trust me, I know economics.
Okay, so it looks like the average household will get about $300. Does the math suggest to you that's enough to cover all the extra costs of a hike in heating and gas because of the carbon tax?
Yes, my estimates suggest that depending where someone is in Canada and depending on their energy use, that their costs can range from, say, $250 to $400 at $20 a ton.
Again, she uses the $20 a ton price, just ignoring the fact that the price on carbon under the federal carbon tax program is going to rapidly rise to $55 a ton. And their own environmental minister has said that it should go 10 times that amount. And of course, Justin Trudeau, who never wants, he never wants to do anything against the UN and can't wait to get his go there and get his little pat on the head for being a good little UN kiss up. We all know that he doesn't care. He doesn't care about middle class Canadians, as we see by the carbon tax. And here's this woman telling us that, oh yeah, here the rebates will cover the cost of $20 a ton. Well, okay, then again, why do the carbon tax in the first place if you're just going to give the money back again? But of course, this professor of economics, she doesn't see any problem with sending all your money to Ottawa, having it washed through a bunch of high-priced bureaucrats, and then sending it back to you. That makes perfect sense to her because she doesn't live in the real world.
And so an average household rebate of $300 should be covering those costs.
Okay, Jennifer Winter, we'll see. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
And there's the end of the CBC propaganda, and then just going, oh, well, you didn't give us any specifics on alternatives to fossil fuels. You didn't give us any specifics on how much it's really going to cost the average household. You just sort of basically told us that, it'll work, and then gave us a vague word salad to back that up. But hey, good enough for me. Hear that, Canadians? Your heavily subsidized national broadcaster has just told you that, this will totally work. So just go ahead and keep voting for Justin Idiot Boy Trudeau. And, it's going to hit you in the wallet. It's probably going to destroy your small business. It's probably going to destroy the national economy. But, we'll just magic pixie dust the economy. Like Justin said, budgets balance themselves. Grow the economy from the heart out. You want to heat your home? There'll be some magic pixie dust to fix that. You want to drive your car to work? There'll be some magic pixie dust to solve that. Don't worry about it. We'll just bring in these experts. And by the way, other experts that the left-wing media have brought out have pointed out that, hey, Sweden, they brought in a carbon tax and it worked great. It only costs $140 a ton. And by saying it works great, they mean that they've reduced carbon emissions by something like 10 to 20%, which is BS. You think that people aren't heating their homes through fossil fuels in Sweden? You think they aren't driving their cars in Sweden? Of course they are. It just costs them a hell of a lot more. That's all. They pull these numbers out of the air without giving you any frame of reference, and then tell you, oh look, see, it works in Sweden. They're paying $140 a ton. And then they leave out telling you the cost of living in Sweden is like 10 times the amount of living in Canada. So how well will that go over with voters? All right, enough of a rant for today. I think you get where I stand on carbon tax. I hope everyone out there listening and watching feels the same way, and will vote PPC come a year from now and get rid of this gang of lunatics that is in Ottawa. Again, if you want to support this channel, it is 100% viewer supported. I'll leave a link to my Patreon or PayPal accounts. And if you want to pick up my book, Puritanical, which is sadly becoming more and more of a prophecy, you can order it direct from me. I do have it on Amazon, but Glacier Media, the media company that is attacking this channel, yes, they work hand in hand with YouTube, but they seem to be the most active in hacking my channel. They're basically just scooping all of my royalty payments from. I keep saying that I get royalty payments from Amazon, and then nothing comes through. And I complain to Amazon, and they just go, "Oh, it's not our department." So, that's Glacier Media just using their usual illegal hackers to tax somebody trying to make a living in Canada. So, if you want to buy my book, request it. You can order direct from me. It's a good read. Just ask some of the people who subscribe to this channel who bought the book. They'll tell you it's a great read. So don't take it from me, take it from them. Anyways, thanks as always for watching and listening. And until next time, this has been Bourbon and Bullets.